Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. Today is Thursday, May 27th, 2021. I'm Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from Southern California. I'm joined today by my co hosts, Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi, guys. Welcome to the show today.
Good to
Thank
be
you,
here as ever.
Carlos and Tulio.
And our guest is broadcasting all the way from Amsterdam. Welcome to the show, Julian. Welcome. We're happy to have you. I know it's getting a little later there. So thanks for being with us. We got an international quorum today, 4 different countries.
Lovely.
Excellent. So we're
Great.
talking about something really interesting today for a lot of companies, which is always, once you've been smart enough to identify your ideal client prospect or profile, then finding them is the big challenge, right? So, uh, Julian is saying that his company can help you actually through artificial intelligence identify your next ideal client. So we want to learn about that. But before we do, let's get to know Julian a little bit. Please, Julien Winkel, introduce yourself. Thank you.
So thank you for being here. It's really an honor to be here. It's crazy to do this in a night and have you guys from the other side of the ocean. So yeah, my name is Julien Winkel. I'm CEO and co-founder of Aithena.ai. I'm just gonna tell you a bit about myself. Born and raised in Amsterdam, a French mother. For this reason, I have Julien as a first name, and Dutch father. And my whole family is really an entrepreneur. So from a young age, I already started to be an entrepreneur. I started with a clothing brand, and I went to Shanghai to really learn Chinese and visit like a lot of factories to find suppliers. Sold that company eventually, and started a network group of young entrepreneurs. Back then, I was 17 years old when I started clothing brand. So I gave every like 4 months, 3 months, I gave events to around 200 young entrepreneurs, and we got sponsored by big multinationals. And that was also the moment when those big multinational asked me, "Can you scout startups for me? Can you find any startups for me in the field of blah blah blah?" So I started like a startup scouting consultancy, and that turned out pretty well. It was really a consultancy, and yeah, last year something interesting happened. We were accepted for an interesting accelerator called Antler, and they said, why not use your algorithm which scouts companies for sales? And then is when a lot of things changed. Basically, more about revenue, about clients, about traction. And yeah, it was really good as a consultancy company, but we made a B2B SaaS out of this, a software. And right now we help our clients to find ideal prospects. And yeah, besides that, I really love nature. I love hiking. I'm living in the city center. And I help some wildlife conservation startups because I think that's really important in this world. So that's a bit of me. Yeah.
Great. So you gave us a little bit of a teaser on Athena, how it started, how you sort of pivot into this idea based on some feedback you got. How does the platform work? How do
Yeah.
companies adopt the
So
platform?
yeah. So what we've seen is that there is a trend going on that people want to have more laser focused targeting. They don't want to send 10,000 emails and have bad reactions or negative comments. They just want to know which companies do I need to sell my tool for, or need to sell my software to. And people are getting to know those companies, and they create ideal customer profile. Like, this is the ideal customer. So we thought your ideal customer is probably also your clients, your current client pool. So why not make an AI that looks at your current client pool and find similar companies like your clients, which you didn't target yet? And that turned out pretty well. So we are scraping every week, we're scraping like 300 million domain names to identify companies. And we scan their whole website and we categorize them with data science models. And by this categorization, we can find similar companies. And the categorizations are like really, really specific. And that is really turning the thing around. Instead of emailing or calling 10,000 companies, which probably are not interested in your tool, you're just emailing like 100, 200, 300 companies, which are definitely interested in your tool. And that makes also the process of salespeople a fun thing. And that's what we've seen. People hate searching, people hate prospecting. They love to call, they love to make revenue, to close deals. and we are just doing the shitty part. We have an AI for that, and you can start calling.
All right, we're going to learn a lot more because I'm very curious about this. But let's introduce the topic and kick it off. Carlos?
Absolutely, Tulio. Thank you so much. And thanks, Julian, for being with us today here on Dojo Live. So, Tulio, Kim, today we're going to be answering one question. And the question is, how will AI find your ICP for you? So that tells us about the next part, which is the topic, which is the future of prospecting. That's the topic that our guest chose for today. So, Julian, first question for you. Why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you think it was relevant for today's day and age?
Yeah,
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's awesome to be here again. So yeah, why I chose this topic is because like we did a research in the sales market and how sales reps are searching right now for new prospects. And we were trying like I think 20 plus tools. And what we saw was that their categorizations are just really, really bad. So categorizations are really broad. So for example, they say it's a marketing company, but marketing is such a broad category, right? Like everything is marketing. Or they even say that this one is funny, internet. Come on. So that's way too broad. So the moment when you identified ideal customer profile, you're forced to use these broad categories. So you say, okay, my ideal client is a marketing company. But that's way too broad. And we see that a lot of people know that their ideal customer profile is way more specific. They, for example, know our ideal customer is a company from Germany. It's a digital agency with a focus on SEO. But that's not what you can type in Cognism or in Zoom Info or other tools. So people are typing in marketing and maybe a bit of internet, and they end up with a list of thousands of prospects. And maybe if they're lucky, 5% of these prospects are their ideal customers. And then we thought this doesn't make sense. So how can we categorize those companies better? So what we found out is how those competitors of us categorize their current companies. And what they do is they use the industry codes of business registers. So they check the business register and the company tells I'm a marketing company or consultancy company, and then they save it like that. So we needed to be independent from business registers. And that's a thing what is crazily difficult. And yeah, we needed some AI people, we needed some PhD data scientist people to do this because we had a great idea. And that is just why not go to their website, because their website is the most up to date. Business registers aren't up to date. So we checked their website and then we thought, okay, let's just get the most important keywords out. And then we thought, what if we train an AI that can classify those keywords in a certain specific industry segment? So eventually we did that. And I want to talk about this topic because I really think that we can be way more efficient in sales and make sales more fun process instead of a process where people are going to Google, to LinkedIn, and they're not happy doing that. Yeah.
Now,
Right.
Julian, this is very interesting. A lot of companies have attempted to develop this kind of approach, right? But it's usually very manual. There's a lot of components to coming up with what is matching the ideal client, the client you already have. And there's so many variables to it. It's not just the size, scope, business they're in. It was also the timing of it. There were things that were specific to that company that made them open to doing business with you, because you could find a client that's exactly like you can find a prospect that's exactly like your client, but the time in how you approach them is different. They were maybe just post Series A. This one's still at C level, so it doesn't necessarily match up. How does the AI bring intelligence in terms of learning and adapting to that kind of information? Does it do that, or is it at that level yet, or is it more elementary still? Can you give us a little bit
so
of
we are new. We are like 2 weeks to 3 weeks live right now. So we already got the prototype out, and the first product what we have is that you input a company and we find 50 similar ones. So what we're working on right now is that we can look into the CRM system, and when we look into the CRM system, we can see what kind of clients did they convert. And the crazy thing is, Julio, is that if you as a human are forced to create an ideal customer profile, you're bound to your own brains, right? So what we are looking into is if we scrape those company websites every week, and we see changes in information from those company websites, we see trends. The AI can see trends, but those trends you as a human cannot see. And that's the moment when I think that an AI can help sales reps and sales teams way better, because they can see parameters which you as a human cannot see. And that's really a thing what we're working on, is that we find parameters and certain points where we can find similarities, which is too data intensive for just the sales team for to do it manually. So that's what we're working on right now. Where we are in the stage is right now we got our first subscriptions, we got a lot of traction. So this is also the proof of concept that the AI works. And upcoming months, we will work more on the AI looking into the CRM system. Yeah. And maybe one interesting thing to tell is that what interesting is that eventually we want to get those clients we push to you, so the prospect we push to the teams, we can also see eventually what they convert. So we can do kind of A/B testing. So let's say I give you 20 companies type A, 20 companies type B. Then the AI can see, okay, you can better focus on type A companies. So you can start to do a kind of type, reinforcement learning and see what is the ideal client. So the AI will sharpen it every day, every time. Yeah.
Nice.
In my experience, when we're looking for our prospects, we start at a company level, right? The ideal client profile. But then when we actually begin our engagement, we actually have to look at the persona level. Who from within this company is the best person for me to reach out to? Is that something that Aithena already services? It's something that's in your future? Especially, I know when you're talking about marketing and what's a marketing company, it could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
So it's also tricky to look at people's job titles, right? Like the VP of Solutions Engineering. It could sound like it's, and technical, but a lot of people are using that as a sales title. So is this a next phase? Like, can we also hone in on key personas with this AI?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as I said, we are live 2 weeks, and what we're building is really a great community of users, and we see our users really as friends. So I'm definitely sure that there are a lot of users now watching as well, because we want to help them. We want to create a win-win situation. And one thing they told us is that what's really important is the contact information. So that besides the companies, the similar companies, they also have the people working there and focus on that. So what we eventually can do is, again, do that type A, B, C, D testing. We just say to you, for example, Kim, if you're selling, like, these are the CFOs of these companies, these are the vice president, this is the financial manager, and we can just see which companies and which people you convert best. And then we push those people to you. So eventually we can see what is the ideal customer for a company, right? But what's more interesting, we can even see what's the ideal customer for a salesperson working in that company. And then it's going to be a really interesting loop, because, for example, you have George and you have Kim. George is better in these type of companies with these type of persons, and Kim is better in these type of companies with these type of persons. And that makes the whole process way more efficient.
Julien, I'm seeing that I find a lot of similarity in the process of what you're implementing with this AI here. A lot of similarities to what I know as benchmarking. So, do you see any uses for Aithena in benchmarking?
Yeah. So what is the point where we are now is really to find those similar companies. So we need to get the steps first, right? So first, it's that the AI is good to find similar companies. We are there. So we are already helping a lot of users, and how they mainly use it is that they have a new client on board. First thing what they do, they get the client's domain, they put it in Aithena and get 50 similar ones, and then start selling for them as well. And that's the fun thing. I always say a bakery needs to eat its own bread. We are doing the same. So we are using our own tool. We use Lead Feeder, for example, to see which companies are going to our website. Then we see, okay, this company is definitely interested. It visits the website like 5 days in a row. That means that this is like an ideal customer. we put it in Aithena on our own tool, which is kind of funny. And then we just target those 50 companies which are similar. And we see that the conversions are like really, really high. Yeah.
Okay. Now, another thing is that I have personally used similar tools in the past. I think one of them is SimilarWeb, things like that. So I'm curious as a user myself of these types of tools, how would you say that Aithena stacks up against other players in the space? What sort of highlights would you say that Aithena has when you stack it up against other players?
Yeah. So what we see is there are competitors who are saying like we have a similarity feature, because similarity feature is a thing that will definitely become bigger and bigger. But they still use the data which they had from those business registers. So still the broad categorizations. So I think the company with the most data about companies, the most specific data about companies, will win this battle, because the people who have the most data about companies can make the best similarities. And that's really what we're working on. That's also like our long-term goal, is that we want to be the first. And an interesting fact about that is we are also forced, if we want to go international in Europe, we are also forced to be independent from those business registers, because sorry to say like this, but the business registers in Europe really suck. And the data is horrible, and they don't show URLs. So what we see is that a lot of our competitors in Europe don't dare to go to the Netherlands because they use business registers, and they don't dare to go to Germany because they have bad business registers. So these are exactly the markets where we will go. And if we can ace this market already with bad business registers, what can happen in America where the business registers are better than compared to here? Yeah.
Very cool. So when looking for ideal clients, a word we keep using a lot in this conversation is similarities.
Yeah.
And a question I have, I can immediately see a lot of the benefits, broadening this pool, increasing my success rate, repeat, if it's not broken, why fix it sort of mentality. Yeah. But what about the flip side? Is there inherent risk with me going after a single market, a single space, or even having the majority of my clients and all my eggs in that basket? Looking at what we just experienced over this past year and a half, like with COVID, where bam, travel markets, restaurants, hospitality were hit really hard, whereas, online education and other verticals, in effect, benefited from something that's completely out of our control. So where would you say we strike a balance between, if it's not fixed, or excuse me, if it's not broken, why fix it, but also not wanting to put all of our eggs in one basket?
I think that's a really lovely question. It's really important, and that's also what we thought about, because you can create a reinforcement loop where you still focus on the same market. For example, that's also what happens sometimes in Netflix, right? You watch one horror movie and the next day also a horror movie, and you only see horror movies while you maybe want to find a rom-com. And that's what we are working on. And what we do is, even in future, we cannot do that right now, is that you as a user will tell Aithena, I want to find out new markets. Help me. And what Aithena then will do is they give you, for example, 50 companies from this market, 50 from this, 50 from this, 50 from this. And it will check, okay, which one did you convert the most? Which one has the best sales cycle? Okay, let's check it out. It seems like type B. Okay, type B1, type B2, type B3, type B4. And then you can learn new markets. So you can also ask to get out of the market. And I think that's a really interesting one. Especially in Europe, because you can focus on countries. What we have in Europe, people focus on the Netherlands, maybe Belgium. But what if a company always focused on the Netherlands and they want to go to Germany? Then they can say to Aithena in the future, right, but still not there. They can say, we want to go to Germany, and let's find out if there's a new market. And we will just push all those prospects to the team. And based on the data, we can analyze which new markets are interesting. Yeah, so that's a really good one. Yeah,
that's interesting. That was circling in my mind a little bit. Like most Series A companies who are trying to cross into multiple markets to prove their value proposition could really use that, and that's a really challenging thing. How do you go and identify what are the ICPs in a new vertical? And there's a lot you can borrow from your existing vertical, but how do you learn how to transfer? So I think you might have a big one there once you guys introduce that.
It's true.
Speaking of
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
speaking of customer targets, what are you targeting right now? Who's like your ideal customer right now?
Yeah.
Is it more established businesses, B2B, B2C? Can you give us a little bit more visibility into that?
So what we focus on now are mainly software companies selling to other software companies, B2B. And why software companies? Because they are the most present online, and that means our scraper can find the most data about them. And also what we're focusing on is just now Netherlands. Get to know the Netherlands market a bit. We are live, like we have Japanese users and everything, but we just thought, okay, let's just start with the Netherlands and grow our marketing from there. So to be honest, it's a bit strange that I'm in this American orientated video.
You're
but I
teasing
love
us. You're teasing
us.
us.
Let's go. Yeah. So it still works pretty good in America because we got a lot of American companies and the websites are in English, so our AI can really read it well. While in Europe we got Italian, Spanish, German, France, and you won't believe it, not every software company has it in English, which is pretty difficult. So yeah, that's mainly what we're focused on right now. But we are also doing this whole process, and we learn from ourselves, right? And that's pretty cool to see. So the moment when we have a new user, that's also the moment when we put that company in Aithena and reach out to similar one like that. And it's crazy to say that. I don't want to sound too sales kind of guy, but the conversions are really great because you find the companies which just need it and they like it. Yeah.
Now you've got analysts like Gardner and others. They'll put companies like yourself in different buckets, right? You've got artificial intelligence marketing automation tools. There are various buckets. Where do you guys see yourselves?
Yeah.
In which bucket?
Yeah, it's what we've seen right now is definitely sales is the majority of people used for sales, but we also see people directing to the market department, and they say this is really interesting for the market department because what we see right now what the users are doing is they just input a company which is client of them, and they have 50 similar companies, and they put this in LinkedIn and do LinkedIn ads on these 50 similar companies, and that works like really well. So it's still a thing we also need to figure out. Because we also come a bit from the tech side, right? I need to be honest. I haven't done a lot of sales in my life, t-shirts when I was young, but not that much. So we are still also in a learning phase, and that's why we love to make a community with our users. And that's maybe good to tell in this cast as well, is that our users are so friendly to us. They even told us like the price we have right now is way too low. And what happens is that people think that 150 euros a month, what we have right now for like 25 searches and 25 searches times 50, that's impossible so cheap compared to other tools. And they think the quality is bad, while we have a crazy AI working day and night somewhere in a server in Frankfurt. And that's maybe good to say, like we are going to increase the prices. So don't tell anyone. But if you're smart, you can need to make a account right now. Yeah.
Yes, if you want to use Aithena, do it now.
Yeah, it is. Like
Call now.
We made a
Call now.
Call now.
Don't miss out. Well, look. I mean, look. There have been companies that have created such a disruption that they ended up creating their own segment, right? So it sounds to me you guys are crossing both sales and marketing. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to do that. All right, so let's shift gear a little bit. We've got about 6 minutes or less left. Let's talk about, you just launched a few weeks ago. Let's talk about a little bit about the company. Yeah. What is it like, a day in the life?
It's
for someone working.
It's hectic. It's really nice. We are a remote company. Like it's so funny because we are like a new startup, and everybody talks about, oh, we're gonna be a remote company, blah blah blah. But for us, it happened automatically, right? We want to have the best PhD data scientist, and that guy is living in Romania, for example. Yeah, you are stupid to bound the talent expertise just in one city. I mean. So we got one guy in Copenhagen, one guy in Malaga. Me and the chief revenue officer are in an office in Amsterdam. and people helping us from Azerbaijan. I mean, it's such an international community, and that's pretty cool to have all those cultures there. So the typical day is really interesting. We start on Monday. We tell, okay, what are we gonna do? What kind of features do we need? What do we hear from the users? And on Friday at 4, we have like an end of the week drink, which is pretty nice. So everybody has a beer or a wine, and then we speak what we have done and have some fun. So yeah, it's cool. It's nice to see the changes in
Nice.
the companies are. Yeah.
We could probably a lot of companies that are going international for the first time could probably learn a lot from your experience and the cultural gaps that often come up. And one of the things we set out to do in this show is to talk about the experience in bridging those cultural gaps, because sometimes you're dealing with different countries, different ways of speaking, communicating, and sometimes if you're not aware, you can get offended by someone just being themselves, with speaking in a tone that is perfectly normal where they live, but not okay with where you. So how you guys managed through that?
I can tell you. You know what the good part is that we are Dutch, and Dutch are famous for beer, weed, but also to be really straightforward.
Yeah, like New Yorkers.
Yeah, so we got a thing. We are just like really straightforward, and we speak our mind, and everybody knows like we don't want to offend people or whatever. So we are transparent. So if anybody has a feeling and they don't feel well, they just tell it. So we are really forcing to be open, transparent, think about each other, and also talk to each other. So like we have people in India also helping us, and I mean the cases there with COVID are like horrible, and we just call and ask how things are going, and that's also really important. Just try not to do only work when you work remote. Also have some fun, and that's what we do on Friday. It's like end of the week, and we try to speak about what we did. But eventually it turns into, oh, you also like wakeboarding? Oh, me too. I went to Mexico, and then we are just talking about that for 20 minutes and have a beer. And I also let that loose, let that be, and don't talk too much about that work then.
We've had several conversations on Dojo Live with very interesting individuals from your region of the world, Denmark and from the Netherlands. And I think, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Pim de Marais is from Holland. We've had him.
I think so. From Corporate Rebels.
From Corporate Rebels.
Yeah, I think another name. Yeah, true.
Yeah, he was here with us on Dojo Live a while ago.
Oh, cool.
And so yeah, it's interesting, the presence of.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a book called The Culture Map, written by a woman named Erin Meyer. And one of the things that I can specifically remember is that the Dutch tendency is to give very with the negative feedback, right? Like you just said, it's point blank and straight up, and which can really take other people off guard, particularly us, like our American style of feedback. We're culturally speaking, we tend to be rather straightforward, culture as well, except for when it comes to feedback. So what we'll do, it's backwards. We'll do is be like, look, this was good. I liked this, and that was great. But why don't you think about changing this, right? Or maybe we should alter the title, which can then be interpreted as like, oh, she said everything was fine, when really I'm saying you need to change the title.
Get in trouble all the time. Swiss-born, grown up in New York City, get in trouble all the time for being direct.
I think it's our history. It's we want to do business. We want to have a win-win situation and no bullshit. I think that's really the thing. And for example, Japan was an isolated island, and Japan didn't want to do business with anybody like in the 1700s, only with the Dutch people, because the Dutch people just wanted to do business, and they didn't want to put religion there or something else. So I think we are like that. Yeah.
But I like the idea that at the end of the week, you can have a pint and settle all disputes.
Yeah. And when are you going to join for the pint?
Let's do it.
Let's
right after the show.
Carlos probably having one now. He's usually drinking during the show.
Hey, Tulio, you know what I've been going through. I mean, I'm like,
I know.
ton of medicines, no alcohol. So
I hear you.
Well,
Julien, listen, I know. I hear. Julien, it's been great to have you. We're up on time. Sounds like a fun place to be a part of, and Congratulations. I know it's early stage, but it looks as though you've got a robust roadmap ahead of you that I think it's going to create some great opportunities for you guys internationally. So we'll have to stay in touch and keep track of your progress, and maybe have you back in the future or hear some use cases. Thanks just being with us. I know it's late there. Just hang out a few minutes as we go off the air. Carlos, what do we got coming up next week? We have the recap show on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, because Monday's a holiday. So everybody enjoy the barbecue with your family. So we're going to have a recap Tuesday at 10 a.m. And then what do we got the rest of the week for guests?
Well, Tulio, Julien, Kim, we got on Tuesday, we're going to be speaking with Uri Maus. He is the Chief Revenue Officer of Upsolver, and the topic is going to be cloud data. Challenges. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry, folks. Cloud data lakes. That's the phrase, the complete phrase. Challenges and best practices for creating widespread adoption. That's what we're going to be speaking about right on Tuesday. Wednesday, I don't have the confirmations yet, so unfortunately, it'll all be there on the website as soon as it's updated. But they should all be as interesting as ever, as every single Dojo Live interview that we've conducted over the last 6 years. So join us next week right here on Dojo Live, 12 p.m. Pacific, and see you there and then.
Thanks. I just want to remind everyone. I just want to quickly remind everyone, our URL is now dojo.live. That's all you got to type in, dojo.live. That's our URL. That's all.
Dojo.live. Nice.
Yes.
Good one.
Thank you very much. See you guys soon. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.